It's a quiet evening in Savannah, Georgia. Rain streaks the diner windows, distorting the neon glow of the sign outside. The faint rumble of thunder rolls through the air as Naomi Carter, a 33-year-old waitress and single mother, wipes down the counter with deliberate care. A man, dressed in a worn-out coat and carrying a tired look in his eyes, approaches her station. He smiles faintly and hands her what appears to be a simple lottery ticket. Naomi accepts it with a polite thank you, slipping it into the pocket of her apron. As the man walks out into the rain, Naomi glances at the clock on the wall. 11:42 p.m. She finishes her shift, unaware that this moment will set the stage for events she could never have imagined. The next morning, sunlight streams through the thin curtains of Naomi's modest apartment. Zara, her 8-year-old daughter, sits at the kitchen table, focused on her cereal while Naomi hurriedly makes coffee. As she waits for the kettle to boil, Naomi remembers the ticket. She pulls it from her purse and retrieves her phone. With a few taps on the lottery app, her heart skips as the numbers align. One by one, they match the jackpot numbers displayed on the screen. Naomi's hands tremble, and she gasps, catching Zara's attention. She sweeps her daughter into a tight hug, whispering, "Our lives are about to change." By the afternoon, Naomi stands in line at the lottery office, a mix of disbelief and excitement coursing through her. The clerk congratulates her warmly, handing over the paperwork to claim the $10 million prize. Cameras flash as reporters gather outside the building. Naomi hesitates before stepping out, shielding her face as questions are hurled her way. That night, as she sits in her small living room, the news is already spreading across social media. Messages flood her phone, some congratulatory, others asking for help or money. She sets the phone down, the weight of the sudden attention beginning to sink in. Over the following days, Naomi's story becomes the talk of Savannah. At first, she welcomes the newfound attention, but soon, the pressures of her fame grow. On the third day, Naomi receives a formal letter delivered to her door. The sender is Daniel Price, the man who tipped her the lottery ticket. The letter states that the ticket was never meant to be a gift and demands a significant portion of her winnings. Shocked, Naomi seeks the advice of a lawyer, who advises her to prepare for a court battle. Weeks later, Naomi finds herself sitting in a courtroom. The air is heavy with anticipation as lawyers argue over the ticket's ownership. Daniel's attorney claims the ticket was a joke, never intended to be handed over as a tip. Naomi listens, her hands gripping the edges of her chair. Her own lawyer counters, presenting evidence of her legal claim to the ticket. The judge remains stoic, postponing the ruling to allow further deliberation. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarm Naomi, their cameras capturing her every move. She pushes through the crowd, her nerves fraying under the constant scrutiny. Late one evening, as Naomi drives home from a visit with her lawyer, she notices a dark van trailing her car. Her chest tightens, and she accelerates slightly, hoping to lose the vehicle. Minutes later, the van speeds ahead, cutting her off. Two masked men emerge, pulling Naomi from her car. The sound of her screams fades into the empty night as she's forced into the back of the van. Blindfolded and disoriented, Naomi is driven to an unknown location. For hours, Naomi sits in a damp, dimly lit room, her hands bound. The kidnappers demand a ransom of $1 million, calling her family repeatedly with threats. Naomi, though terrified, focuses on remaining calm. She notices faint details in the room, a loose nail in the wall, the distant sound of a train passing. Using these observations, she manages to leave subtle clues during a call with her lawyer. Law enforcement traces the call, and at dawn, officers storm the abandoned warehouse, rescuing Naomi. Back at home, Naomi begins to rebuild her sense of safety. She hires a security team and takes steps to protect her daughter. The court case continues, with Daniel Price refusing to drop his claim. Despite the ordeal, Naomi finds strength in her community. Women from all walks of life send her messages of encouragement, sharing their own stories of overcoming adversity. Inspired, Naomi decides to use her platform to advocate for financial literacy and personal safety. Months later, Naomi stands before a packed room at a community center. She shares her journey, from the joy of winning to the trials she endured. Her voice is steady, her message clear. Resilience can turn any challenge into an opportunity for growth. As the audience rises to their feet in applause, Naomi smiles, knowing that her story has become a beacon of hope for others. Naomi Carter's story begins in the small rural town of Pinewood, South Carolina. Pinewood was the kind of place where life moved slowly, and opportunities felt as scarce as rain during a summer drought. The town's main street, lined with weathered storefronts and faded signs, hinted at better days long past. Naomi's childhood home sat at the end of a red clay road, a modest two-bedroom house surrounded by tall oak trees. The roof leaked during storms, and the wooden porch creaked with every step, but inside, it was a place of warmth and love. Naomi was raised by her grandmother, Lorraine Carter, a fiercely independent woman who took in sewing work from neighbors to make ends meet. Lorraine often worked late into the night, the rhythmic hum of her old Singer sewing machine filling the house. Naomi would sit beside her, helping to sort fabrics or thread needles. Lorraine's voice carried a calm authority as she reminded Naomi of life's simple truths. Hard work doesn't promise wealth, but it promises dignity. These words would stay with Naomi, shaping the woman she would become. As a child, Naomi was bright and ambitious, dreaming of a life far beyond Pinewood's boundaries. But those dreams were tempered by reality. She watched her grandmother scrape by, turning pennies into meals and enduring sleepless nights to ensure Naomi had what she needed. The weight of that sacrifice instilled in Naomi a sense of responsibility far beyond her years. She excelled in school but knew that college would remain out of reach without scholarships or savings. At 18, Naomi made the hardest decision of her life, leaving Pinewood. With a suitcase full of clothes and a heart full of hope, she boarded a Greyhound bus bound for Savannah, Georgia. The bustling city was a world apart from the quiet roads of her childhood. Its lively markets, historic squares, and vibrant music scenes offered a stark contrast to the stillness she had always known. Yet, Savannah wasn't without its challenges. Naomi quickly learned that life in the city demanded more than just dreams. It required grit and unrelenting determination. Naomi found work as a cashier during the day at a local grocery store and picked up shifts as a waitress at Joe's Diner in the evenings. Joe's was a small, no-frills diner tucked into the corner of Pine Street. Its cracked vinyl booths and glowing neon sign welcomed locals looking for a quick bite. Naomi became a familiar face to the regulars, known for her kind smile and tireless work ethic. The tips were small, but every dollar counted toward rent, utilities, and providing for her daughter, Zara. Zara was Naomi's world. At just 8 years old, she was a bright and curious child who loved to draw pictures of imaginary cities and animals. Naomi worked hard to make their two-bedroom apartment feel like home. It wasn't much, peeling wallpaper in the hallway, a drafty window in the living room, but it was theirs. Evenings were sacred in their household. After finishing her late shifts, Naomi would sit with Zara at their small, wobbly kitchen table, helping her with schoolwork or reading bedtime stories. Those moments, however brief, were what Naomi cherished most. Despite the long hours and sleepless nights, Naomi never let her struggles define her. She carried herself with quiet strength, navigating life's challenges with resilience. Her dreams of a better life for Zara kept her going, even on the hardest days. Yet, beneath her steady determination, there was a lingering fear, a fear that no matter how hard she worked, she could never fully outrun the struggles of her past. But life is a way of testing even the strongest among us. What Naomi didn't know was that a single act of kindness on an ordinary evening would soon thrust her into a whirlwind of events that no amount of hard work could prepare her for. In the city she had come to call home, her life was about to change in ways she could never have foreseen. The morning light filters into Naomi Carter's small kitchen, casting warm shadows on the walls. The smell of instant coffee lingers in the air, its steam rising lazily from a mug sitting on the counter. The faint sound of the neighborhood waking up, dogs barking, the hum of passing cars, drifts through the open window. Zara, Naomi's 8-year-old daughter, sits at the wobbly kitchen table, dressed in her favorite pink pajamas. Her legs swing beneath her chair as she meticulously spoons cereal into her mouth, her eyes focused on a crayon drawing she's been working on. Naomi stands by the counter, wearing an old t-shirt and faded sweatpants, her hair tied back into a loose bun. Her movements are slow, tired from another double shift the night before. Her mind is already running through the day's to-do list, groceries, laundry, and finding time to review Zara's homework. As she sips her lukewarm coffee, a thought crosses her mind. She remembers the lottery ticket the man at the diner gave her the night before. With a small smile, she reaches into her purse, pulling out the folded piece of paper. It feels like a small indulgence, almost silly, as she sets the ticket down on the counter and unlocks her phone. The lottery app loads slowly, and Naomi glances over at Zara, who is now humming a tune to herself. Naomi enters the first number, then the second. Her expression is calm, almost indifferent, as if expecting nothing to come of it. But then the third number matches. Her brows furrow, her finger hesitating slightly before entering the fourth. When the screen flashes to show another match, her breath catches. She stops, holding the ticket closer to her face as if the numbers might somehow change. Her thumb hovers over the phone, and she carefully types the fifth number. It matches. Her chest tightens, her heart pounding loudly in her ears. Finally, she enters the sixth number, her fingers trembling slightly. The app confirms it. Jackpot. $10 million. The phone falls onto the counter with a soft thud, and Naomi grabs the ticket with both hands, staring at it as if it might disappear. Her legs feel weak, and she stumbles slightly, catching herself on the edge of the counter. Zara notices her mother's strange behavior and calls out, "Mama, are you okay?" Naomi turns, tears welling in her eyes, and crosses the room in 3 quick steps. She drops to her knees in front of Zara, pulling her into a tight hug. "Baby, we did it," she whispers, her voice shaking with emotion. "We're going to be okay now. We're going to be more than okay." Zara, confused but sensing her mother's excitement, wraps her small arms around Naomi's neck. For a moment, the world feels still inside their tiny kitchen. The peeling wallpaper, the scratched linoleum floor, the secondhand furniture, all of it fades into the background. Naomi's mind races with possibilities she had never dared to consider. A better school for Zara, a safe neighborhood, a reliable car, maybe even a home of their own. For the first time in years, the weight of constant struggle begins to lift, replaced by an overwhelming sense of relief and hope. As she pulls back, Naomi looks into Zara's eyes, a wide smile breaking across her tear-streaked face. "Our lives are going to change, sweetheart," she says. "I promise you that." The sunlight pouring through the window feels warmer now, the sounds of the neighborhood somehow brighter. Naomi grips the lottery ticket tightly, her heart full of gratitude and the faintest flicker of something she hasn't felt in years, possibility. It doesn't take long for Naomi Carter's life to transform. The morning after claiming her winnings, her name appears in a brief local news report. By afternoon, that small announcement grows into a wildfire of attention. In the quiet neighborhood where Naomi and Zara live, the once familiar streets now hum with the unfamiliar sound of car engines and murmuring crowds. Outside her modest apartment complex, a group of reporters gathers, their cameras pointed at her front door. The click of shutters and the rapid-fire questions create a cacophony that echoes off the brick walls. Naomi peeks out from behind her living room curtains, her heart racing. Across the street, neighbors linger on their porches, whispering and pointing. Cars idle along the curb, their drivers craning their necks to catch a glimpse of the woman who has become an overnight sensation. Inside, the atmosphere is tense. Zara sits on the couch, clutching a stuffed animal, her wide eyes fixed on the unfamiliar faces outside. Naomi paces the small living room, her phone vibrating constantly in her hand. Text messages, phone calls, and social media notifications flood in. Some are from old acquaintances offering congratulations, others from strangers asking for help, or worse, demanding a share of her newfound fortune. By the second day, news crews from beyond Savannah begin to arrive. Satellite vans park along the narrow street, their towering antennas looming over the neighborhood. Reporters shout questions into microphones, speculating about Naomi's life, her plans, and how she intends to spend the money. Some try to piece together her past, digging into details of her childhood and work history. One outlet even airs a segment featuring interviews with her co-workers at Joe's Diner, describing her as kind, hard-working, and deserving of the win. But not all the attention is kind. Online, social media platforms buzz with commentary. Posts range from admiration to envy, and some carry a more ominous tone. A particularly heated thread debates whether the man who tipped Naomi the ticket has a claim to her winnings. Naomi's name becomes a hashtag, trending locally as speculation about her sudden wealth grows. On the third day, a knock at her door startles her. Through the peephole, she sees a man in a crisp suit holding a leather briefcase. Reluctantly, she opens the door a crack. He introduces himself as a lawyer representing Daniel Price, the man who left her the winning lottery ticket. The words hit her like a thunderclap. He intends to sue her for a portion of the winnings, claiming the ticket was not meant as a gift. Naomi stands frozen, gripping the door frame as the lawyer hands her a thick envelope of legal documents. The media frenzy only intensifies after the lawsuit is filed. Reporters now camp outside her home day and night, their cameras trained on her door. Naomi tries to shield Zara from the chaos, keeping the curtains drawn and the TV off. But the weight of the attention feels suffocating. She avoids answering her phone, wary of the constant stream of unknown numbers. Her neighbors, once friendly and warm, now eye her with suspicion or thinly veiled jealousy. One evening, as the sun sets and the crowd outside begins to thin, Naomi sits alone in her kitchen. The lottery ticket, now folded and tucked into an envelope, rests on the table in front of her. She stares at it, her thoughts a whirlwind. The dream of financial freedom that felt so tangible just days ago now feels distant, overshadowed by the growing chaos around her. Little does she know, this is only the beginning of her challenges. Naomi's dreams of financial freedom take a sudden turn when Daniel Price, the customer who left her the lottery ticket, files a lawsuit. The claim is simple yet shocking. He insists the ticket was never intended as a gift. According to him, it was a joke, a playful gesture during a casual conversation, and he argues that Naomi's windfall rightfully belongs to him. For Naomi, the carefree moment at the diner that seemed so unimportant at the time now stands at the center of a legal storm. The first time Naomi steps into her lawyer's office, she feels out of place. The room is cold and professional, with shelves lined with legal textbooks and awards. Her lawyer, a seasoned professional named Evelyn Moore, calmly lays out the situation. The lawsuit isn't just a dispute, it's a challenge to Naomi's integrity and her right to the life-changing prize. Evelyn assures Naomi that they have a strong case but warns her that the battle ahead will be grueling. The courtroom proceedings begin in downtown Savannah, in a building with marble floors and echoing hallways. Naomi sits at the defendant's table, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Across from her is Daniel Price, dressed sharply, his demeanor confident. His lawyer argues that the ticket was handed over in jest, emphasizing that Daniel never explicitly said, "This is a gift." They claim it was Naomi's assumption and accuse her of taking advantage of the situation. Naomi's lawyer, Evelyn, counters with precision. She presents surveillance footage from the diner, showing the moment Daniel handed Naomi the ticket along with his payment. The clip doesn't capture audio, but it shows Daniel smiling and walking away without hesitation. Evelyn argues that his actions are consistent with someone leaving a tip, not joking or retracting ownership. She highlights Naomi's years of hard work and her reputation as an honest and dependable person in the community. The case draws massive public attention. Outside the courthouse, reporters and onlookers gather in large numbers. Microphones and cameras line the steps, capturing every development. Press conferences become a daily occurrence. Daniel's lawyer stands before the crowd, painting his client as a victim of misunderstanding. Evelyn counters with a quiet dignity, defending Naomi's character and right to her winnings. Inside the courtroom, tension runs high as witnesses are called. Regulars from Joe's Diner testify on Naomi's behalf, describing her as trustworthy and hardworking. One patron recalls Daniel's frequent jokes but admits that his tone often blurred the line between serious and playful. Another witness, a fellow waitress, confirms that tips at the diner are sometimes unconventional, ranging from baked goods to lottery tickets. Naomi sits quietly, her eyes fixed on the table, listening intently as her life is dissected in front of strangers. As the weeks drag on, the strain begins to show. Naomi spends hours in Evelyn's office, reviewing statements and preparing for cross-examination. Late at night, she sits at her kitchen table, staring at the growing stack of legal documents, her mind heavy with worry. Zara, sensing her mother's stress, offers quiet hugs and small reassurances. But even her bright spirit can't fully ease Naomi's burden. The turning point comes during Daniel's testimony. Under questioning, he hesitates when asked why he never mentioned the so-called joke until after the jackpot was announced. His answer falters, and Evelyn seizes the opportunity, highlighting inconsistencies in his story. The courtroom grows silent as Daniel's credibility begins to waver. Outside, the media frenzy continues. But now the narrative begins to shift in Naomi's favor. By the end of the proceedings, Naomi feels a cautious sense of hope. The judge announces that a ruling will be issued in the coming days. For Naomi, the waiting feels endless. As she walks out of the courthouse, the cameras flash, and reporters call her name. She shields Zara, who clings to her side, and makes her way to the car, her face a mix of exhaustion and determination. Naomi returns home to her modest apartment, the chaos of the court fading behind her. She knows the fight isn't over, but for the first time, she feels the strength of her resolve. Whatever the outcome, she has no intention of giving up what she believes is rightfully hers. After another long day of legal meetings, Naomi Carter leaves her lawyer's office late in the evening. The city streets are quiet as she drives her worn sedan down a dimly lit road. The hum of the engine and the rhythmic clicking of her turn signal are the only sounds breaking the silence. She checks her rearview mirror out of habit and notices headlights trailing her. The vehicle seems to be following her at a steady distance, its presence unnervingly constant. Naomi turns onto a quieter road, hoping to shake off the sense of unease. But the van behind her speeds up, closing the gap between them. Her pulse quickens. As she approaches an intersection, the van swerves suddenly, pulling in front of her car and blocking her path. Before she can react, two masked men jump out and rush toward her. Naomi scrambles to lock her doors, but one of them shatters her driver's side window with a crowbar. Glass sprays across the seat as they pull her out of the car. She screams, kicking and struggling, but their grip is unrelenting. They force her into the back of the van, binding her hands and covering her head with a rough burlap sack. The van speeds off, its tires screeching on the asphalt. Naomi is plunged into darkness, her breathing ragged beneath the stifling fabric. She tries to calm herself, focusing on the faint sounds outside. The rumble of the engine, the occasional blare of After what feels like an eternity, the van comes to a stop. Naomi is dragged out and led into a cold, damp space. When the sack is removed, her eyes adjust to the dim light of a single flickering bulb hanging from the ceiling. She's in an abandoned warehouse. The walls are stained with graffiti, the floor littered with broken glass and debris. The men push her onto a wooden chair and secure her hands behind her back. One of the men steps forward, his voice distorted by a mask. He demands a ransom of $1 million, warning her not to try anything foolish. Naomi, though terrified, forces herself to remain calm. She notices faint details in her surroundings. A crack in the wall where a faint breeze seeps in, the sound of trains passing in the distance, the faint but distinct smell of oil. These details, she decides, could be her lifeline. For 36 hours, Naomi endures the ordeal. The men keep her under constant watch, pacing the room as they argue over the ransom. They use a burner phone to make their demands, calling her lawyer and leaving vague threats. Naomi takes every opportunity to observe and listen. She notices one of the men stepping outside regularly, likely to smoke, and hears the faint creak of a nearby door that suggests a second exit. During one of the ransom calls, Naomi seizes her chance. When the phone is handed to her, she speaks in a calm but deliberate tone, slipping in subtle clues. "Please tell Zara I'm close to the trains. I can feel the breeze from the outside." The words seem innocuous enough to her captors, but her lawyer immediately recognizes them as a plea for help. Law enforcement is notified, and the clues Naomi provided help narrow down the search. The train tracks and the description of the industrial smell lead them to an area on the outskirts of Savannah, filled with old warehouses. At dawn, a team of officers arrives at the location. They approach quietly, surrounding the building before storming in. The masked men are caught off guard, scrambling to escape but quickly subdued. Naomi, still tied to the chair, is overcome with relief as officers rush to her side. They cut her bonds, and for the first time in hours, she breathes freely. Tears stream down her face as she thanks them, her voice trembling. Later, as the morning sun rises over Savannah, Naomi sits in the back of an ambulance, a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. Though shaken and exhausted, she remains composed. Her ordeal has left her physically unharmed but emotionally rattled. The warehouse, now surrounded by police cars and flashing lights, stands as a grim reminder of how far some are willing to go to exploit her newfound fortune. As she is driven home, Naomi glances out the window at the city streets, her mind racing. She knows the fight for her safety and dignity is far from over. But in that moment, she feels a renewed sense of determination to protect what matters most: her life, her daughter, and the future she fought so hard to secure. As dawn breaks over Savannah, the air is crisp and quiet, save for the faint chirping of birds. A convoy of police vehicles approaches the abandoned warehouse, their headlights cutting through the early morning mist. Officers in tactical gear move with precision, surrounding the building. Inside, Naomi Carter sits bound to a chair, her eyes fixed on the floor, her mind racing as she clings to the hope that her subtle clues have reached someone who can help. Suddenly, the stillness is shattered by the sound of boots on gravel and the bark of commands. The masked men scramble to react, but they are outnumbered and overpowered. The creak of the warehouse door swings open, and officers pour in. Naomi hears the commotion, her heart pounding as she dares to look up. Moments later, an officer rushes to her side, cutting the ropes that have bound her hands for 36 hours. She gasps, finally free, and collapses into their arms, overcome by a mix of relief and exhaustion. The scene outside the warehouse is a flurry of activity. Police vehicles and ambulances create a chaotic backdrop as Naomi is escorted to safety. Wrapped in a blanket, she sits on the back bumper of an ambulance, her face pale but resolute. Paramedics check her vitals while officers speak in hushed tones nearby. One detective kneels beside her, offering words of reassurance. "You're safe now, Ms. Carter. You're going to be okay." The media quickly descends on the story, and by the afternoon, news outlets across the nation are broadcasting footage of the rescue. Headlines flash across screens, proclaiming her harrowing escape. Reporters dub her the $10 million survivor, a title that both fascinates and troubles Naomi. Interviews and news reports recount her quick thinking during captivity, highlighting how she left subtle clues that led to her rescue. Clips of her lawyer, Evelyn Moore, speaking on Naomi's behalf, circulate widely. Naomi's bravery and resourcefulness saved her life, Evelyn states firmly. But this ordeal is a sobering reminder of the risks that come with sudden wealth. In the days that follow, Naomi tries to rebuild her sense of normalcy, but the trauma lingers. She avoids the press, retreating to her apartment where she can finally hold Zara again. The reunion is emotional, with Zara clinging tightly to her mother, unwilling to let go. "I was so scared, Mama," Zara whispers, tears streaming down her cheeks. Naomi reassures her daughter, vowing to protect her no matter what. Meanwhile, her story sparks a nationwide conversation about the risks and responsibilities of newfound wealth. Talk shows and panel discussions dissect her case, focusing on the dangers of publicizing lottery wins and the lengths people will go to exploit them. Naomi's face appears on magazine covers, her story a mix of admiration and cautionary tale. Some praise her resilience, while others question whether she should have handled her winnings differently. Though grateful to be alive, Naomi finds herself grappling with the weight of her new reality. Her winnings, once a beacon of hope, have turned her into a target, first legally and now physically. She hires a private security team and takes steps to shield Zara from the public eye. She begins attending therapy sessions, working through the trauma of her captivity while learning to navigate her life under constant scrutiny. Sitting in her living room one evening, Naomi watches a news segment recounting her ordeal. The anchor's voice echoes through the room. Naomi Carter's story has captured the nation's attention, serving as both an inspiring tale of survival and a stark reminder of the challenges that come with wealth. Naomi turns off the television and gazes out the window. The city lights twinkle in the distance, a quiet reminder of how far she's come. Despite the fear and chaos, she resolves to take control of her life once more, determined to turn her pain into purpose. Determined to rebuild her life and protect her family, Naomi Carter begins to take decisive action. Seated across from her lawyer, Evelyn Moore, in a sunlit office overlooking downtown Savannah, Naomi listens intently as Evelyn outlines a plan to safeguard her finances and privacy. Legal documents are signed, trusts are established, and Naomi starts to feel the first glimmers of control returning. The next stop on her journey is a sleek, modern boardroom where she meets a team of financial advisors. They explain investment strategies, long-term wealth management, and the importance of budgeting, even with millions in the bank. For Naomi, the learning curve is steep, but she approaches it with the same determination that carried her through years of struggle. She asks questions, takes notes, and ensures every decision aligns with her ultimate goal, creating a secure future for Zara. But Naomi doesn't stop at protecting her own interests. Recognizing the power of her story, she begins to think about how she can help others. Invitations start pouring in from local organizations asking her to speak about her experiences. At first hesitant, Naomi decides to step forward. At a well-attended community event in Savannah, she stands before a crowd of women, her voice steady but full of emotion. She talks about the lessons she's learned, how to protect oneself financially, the importance of privacy, and the need for personal security in an unpredictable world. It's not just about money, she says, addressing the audience. It's about taking control of your life and making decisions that empower you and your family. Her words resonate deeply, sparking conversations and inspiring others to consider their own financial health and personal safety. Naomi Carter's story, once defined by struggle and fear, transforms into one of resilience and purpose. At a packed community center in Savannah, women gather to hear her speak. The room buzzes with anticipation, a mix of admiration and curiosity filling the air. Naomi steps onto the stage, her presence commanding but warm. She begins with her journey, the nights spent waiting tables, the unexpected lottery win, and the trials that followed. The audience listens intently as she recounts the legal battle, the kidnapping, and the media frenzy that turned her life upside down. But her focus isn't on the pain. It's on the strength she found to rise above it. We all face challenges, she tells the crowd, her voice steady but passionate. Some are visible, others we carry silently. What matters is how we choose to respond. Naomi shares practical advice about financial literacy, the importance of setting boundaries, and the value of leaning on trusted allies. As she speaks, heads nod in agreement, and a few women wipe away tears. Her story isn't just an account of survival. It's a testament to the power of transformation. By the end of her talk, the room erupts in applause. Naomi smiles, her heart full, knowing that her words have made an impact. For Naomi, the journey isn't about the money or the attention. It's about using her experiences to create a ripple effect of empowerment. She leaves the stage with a renewed sense of purpose, her message clear. Even in the face of unimaginable challenges, you can rise above. You can take back your power and inspire others to do the same. As the crowd disperses, Naomi lingers, speaking with women who approach her for advice or simply to thank her. In their faces, she sees echoes of her own journey, a reminder of why she chose to turn her trials into a platform for change. For Naomi Carter, the road hasn't been easy, but it has led her to a place of triumph and inspiration. In the late afternoon light, Naomi Carter sits at a corner booth in Joe's Diner, the place where her journey began. The hum of conversation and the clatter of plates fill the air, a comforting backdrop to her quiet moment of reflection. A steaming cup of coffee sits in front of her, untouched, as her pen glides across the pages of a worn notebook. This diner, once a symbol of her struggles, now feels like a circle completed. She pauses, looking out the window at the world moving by, her thoughts momentarily drifting to the past, the late nights, the battles fought, and the lessons learned. Naomi's story is one of resilience, courage, and empowerment. From a waitress in Savannah to a millionaire advocate, her journey has been anything but easy. Yet, it is a testament to the strength of the human spirit, proof that while life can take unexpected turns, it's how you choose to respond that defines your path. As she writes, her purpose is clear. This memoir isn't just about recounting events. It's about inspiring others to face their challenges head-on, to find hope even in the darkest moments, and to use their struggles as a springboard for growth. The din of the diner fades as Naomi's pen presses firmly against the final words of the page. She closes the notebook, takes a deep breath, and lifts her coffee cup to her lips, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. This is more than a lottery win. It's a story of transformation, of rising above, and of finding the strength to rewrite your narrative, no matter how impossible it may seem.